Of the election campaign, only another 24 to go. If you're finding it tough going, imagine what it's like for all those hapless hacks, not knowing where you're going to be from one day to the next, trying to find a new story. That's not so easy. Reporting in a 24/7 world. To find out more about the scenes behind the story, we hitched a ride with the BBC's very own political editor, Nick Robinson, as he swapped London for Birmingham and Labour's manifesto launch. Has a city break ever sounded so tempting?
Gordon Brown's just arrived a little bit early, but he gets rather more bites than me.
It's 8 o'clock on Monday, the 12th of April. The news headlines this morning. Labour is publishing its election manifesto today. First, our political editor, Nick Robinson. What grabs you, Nick? Because there's been a lot of briefing.
There's plenty of reason to be weary about manifestos, John. One down. Lots to go.
I get a knock on my door. You know it's yours for sure. We can't wait for the bedroom.
I'm just trying to think what question to ask Gordon Brown. The temptation is always to ask something that's a little tiny development on what happened yesterday, and that's a development on what happened the day before, and that one's a development. But an election is a moment where a lot of people who haven't been watching or listening at all suddenly tune in, and finding the question that they want to hear asked and answered is a bit of a trick. Dangerous to say that because I'll probably get it horribly wrong there.
You gotta work it out. You gotta work it out. Brother, gotta work it out.
The party activists are gathering, the tellies are ready, the police are on standby. Yes, it's manifesto launch time. And it's easy to think these things don't matter. I mean, after all, Labour's last manifesto didn't tell you Tony Blair was going to go. It didn't tell you there'd be an economic crisis, or the war would get worse in Afghanistan, or, of course, that there'd be the expenses crisis. But manifestos do tell you quite important things. They're a kind of contract, aren't they, between parties and the people, and although they can break them, they pay a political price if they're seen to do it.
We are in the future business. And under my leadership, we will always be in the future business, building a future fair for all.
Can I ask you to deal, you sort of dealt with this, but give you a chance to deal with the scepticism the public has about all parties' manifestos, the sense that your manifesto, their manifestos, didn't see the expenses crisis coming, didn't see the economic crisis coming, didn't see the war getting worse in Afghanistan. Is it worth? It worth the paper it's written?
No, it is a long question, but I'll give an answer. Nick.
The most interesting thing about this launch was not what was said, not what was on the paper, but how Gordon Brown performed. The training that he's had for those debates is clearly working. Pretty relaxed, made some jokes, avoided the normal jargon. It was even nice to reporters. What have we next?
But in the back of my mind, I wonder, is it gonna be the last time? Well, if it ain't about loving and you gon' keep it coming, well, baby, with me, that's fine.
You carry this about and people say to you, oh, that guy just back there, are you running for the Labour Party then? He looked a bit disappointed when I said no.
Blow your horn now! Come on, blow your horn now!
It was a funny old manifesto launch, this, with the Prime Minister surrounded not just by journalists but by Labour supporters. They cheered the things they liked, he said, and they booed questions they didn't like, including mine. Nothing has been left to chance. The impression that the Labour Party wanted to create today is that no one could say that they hadn't got the energy or the ideas for the future, or that they were really giving up and looking back to the past. It was a very, very long document, but in truth they just wanted it summed up in an easy phrase. We have got a plan for the future.
It doesn't mention the deficit, and it...
I've got to get on there, got to finish the edit. David Cameron was campaigning in Loughborough today. The Liberal Democrats' turn to set out their plans comes on Wednesday.
They promised fairness and new politics in the last election, in 2005. They're doing it again. If they haven't managed to do it in 13 years, why on earth would anyone believe that they're going to be able to do it this time.
That's it. Been a long day. Another manifesto to read tomorrow.
Not as long as our day, Nick. Nick Robinson there. Let's go back to basics. Do manifestos still matter?
People hardly ever read them. It's a very small minority of people that read manifestos, in my experience.
So you don't think they do?
Well, they do in
You
a
have to
sense.
do them, but they don't
You
matter.
have to do them. People don't read them, but they set a kind of theme
Who are
for
they
the campaign.
Are they for the? Are they for us in the media? Are they for the party faithful and the politicians?
Well, they're a bit for everybody. The main importance of manifestos is really what happens after. That the party activists are the guardians of the manifesto and want to make sure that everything you promised is implemented. And the things where you break your promise, of course, are then used against you subsequently. I mean, a lot of what's been said about the Labour manifesto is that it contains these promises about income tax. But the promise about income tax in the last manifesto was broken. I might say it also contains a promise for a referendum, and the promise for a referendum in the last one was broken.
What do you make of Peter Mandelson calling it a Blair Plus manifesto, with all this emphasis on public service reform?
That's rather Peter Mandelson showing off. I mean, this is very much Mandelson's campaign. He's at every press conference.
So has he nobbled the manifesto?
Ed Miliband was extremely unamused by that, wasn't he? I don't know whether you saw him on Newsnight this evening. But I mean, he was absolutely refusing, absolutely refusing to endorse the idea that this was Blair Plus. He just kept saying, "Oh, Peter's Peter." Didn't sound like a very united team.
Interviewed on the Channel 4 News tonight,
right.
he was told what Mandelson had said, and he gave a kind of, oh, well, New Labour's always been a coalition. He then thought the camera was off, and he said to the Channel 4 reporter, Peter Mandelson didn't say that, did he? That's caught on camera. Yeah. So I ask again, what's it like to have a Blair Plus manifesto?
It's wonderful, truly, truly wonderful. Just as it's truly wonderful to see Mandelson on camera every day.
Why is your nose getting longer? Why are we still talking about public service reform? Weren't we meant to have that along with the huge increase in money starting 10 years ago into the public services?
I think one of the critical failures of Gordon Brown as Chancellor of the Exchequer was that he was willing to make so much money available to the public services without demanding reform first. And there was a deal to be done there. He could have said there's going to be this wall of money, but you have to deliver the reform first, and he didn't do that. So we didn't have the reform in the way...
But we had the wall of money.
But we had the wall of money. So, for example, productivity in the National Health Service has gone down, public sector pensions have remained unsorted out, you know, policemen are still retiring at 50 and spending as long on retirement as they're spent in service.
Yeah, well, some of